Hello everybody, welcome to episode 3 of The Good, The Bad and The Rugby. It's good to have you with us once again. Another big week for us. And a big thanks to Billy Vunipola, who obviously was our guest last week. Incredible honesty. Some of you loved the honesty and the space he was given to explain himself. Others of you understandably disagreed, but obviously we try to do our very best and to give people space to express their opinions. We're always learning, we're always trying to get better. So all opinions and feedback very welcome, very gratefully received. But hopefully it was an interesting hour or so with the England number 8. And we are certainly in for an interesting hour or so tonight with one of England's greatest. Tickets, please. It is all aboard the fun bus. Good evening, sir. How are you? Lord Jason Leonard.
Very good, Alex. How are you?
I'm all right. We've also got the Lord along as well. Where are you?
At a secret location that I would not like to disclose. But no, very excited. I was so happy when Jace agreed to come on. Obviously, Jace played a pivotal role in my experience at England rugby. He probably single-handedly is responsible for every ounce of trouble I got into since and during my England career as a mentor as he was. Him and Lol probably take full responsibility, but it was good being his Padawan learner.
Are you happy to accept that, Jace, or is that a false accusation?
That could be a lot worse, Alex, to be quite honest.
We're going to get into that, I can promise you.
I've got to say, I'd always thought Mike coming into the squad was just at the right time. Sparky young kid, got a bit about him, quite cocky, and he wanted to let people know that he's here to stay. So no, he was a great addition to the squad at the right time.
And it came with a sidekick in the name of Bolshaw, which always worked well. The two Northern Monkeys.
Yeah, I can see Tins would have been welcomed as a sort of an honorary forward. Did Bolsh ever get the same treatment, or was he always? I mean, he was pretty slippery and pretty slick in his pomp, wasn't he?
He was. In his finest moments, he was a fantastic player. I've got to say that now. No, I've got to say Tins could hold his own a bit more, considerably more. Bolsh got carried out quite a few times, I think. Which is quite handy because he only weighed about sort of 10 stone. So you could actually just pop him under your arm and just walk out of the bar with him.
Pop him in your top pocket and leave him there till the clouds parted. How are you? What's been going on in your world? What have you done today? What have you been doing for the last few weeks?
Still, I think everyone is this, really. I mean, I'm in conversation with a number of people, whether it be work, rugby, charity, family, and I think everyone just wants this to change. Again, without going mad, but you want to see people, you want to talk to people face to face, you want to see the whites of their eyes, everything like this. Well, whilst some people I know absolutely love this, they think this is the new thing for them. I've got to say, I'm a little bit of a social butterfly in that aspect. I like meeting people, I like talking to people. So this is a little bit too removed for me. I'd rather do it over a drink or something like that. It's a tough one for me.
You single-handedly have the greatest memory for people where you meet. It always astounded me going post-match. Well, what astounded me was how fast you can get changed post an international match. And how little you can take it to an international match also, in the fact that you went with
what do you
one
mean
rucksack.
by that?
Obviously, my first year coming into rugby was full professionalism. So I would take 3 pairs of boots just in case one pair broke during the warm-up, or you needed to borrow some laces or a stud, you lost a stud, you needed another stud. You take 2 gum shields, you take all this sort of kit. A lot of it, granted, you didn't need, and I learned that from Jace further down the line. But Jace would take a rucksack, and it would be the smallest rucksack. It would be normally the rucksack you would take on a plane. Somehow it was like Mary Poppins' bag. It would have his suit in it. It had everything. It seemed to fit into this bag. And then his boots just hung off the back of it. So 1 pair of boots, straight in the change room. And then you get back and you finish a test match and you've wandered around. You sort of reflect if you've won. Jace, in, bang. By the time I got in the change room, he is changed, gone, and he's in a corporate box somewhere mixing it up. And it was just astounding. You're like, where's Jace? And you go back to him and go, mate, how many boxes have you been in? He's like, 10. You're like, 10? And that's why my wife used to love hugging Jace. He always got a little bit bigger the quicker he got out.
I'm sure most people won't understand what you're talking about, but and you can deny all these allegations as hearsay. It's so nice to have you on, and you are one of England's greatest, if not the. I mean, you're the only England player to have ever played over 100 tests, which given that Australia have got about 30 or 40, is quite extraordinary. I mean, what was the secret to your longevity in the game?
Injuries. I didn't have many injuries. I had a couple of corking injuries. I injured my neck very early on in my career, which was very serious, but managed to get over that and have no problems with it for the rest of my career. But I was very lucky. I didn't get injured very often.
With that neck injury, was there times when you were told you wouldn't play? Because you've sort of glossed it over. One of your vertebrae in your neck basically exploded, didn't it? And you had to have a bit of hip put on. And even nowadays, that would be a potential career ender. But you didn't even miss a test match. You did it in the Six Nations. You were back in the autumn.
I think that's more luck, not by design in that aspect. My neck went in the final game of the championship, the Five Nations Championship against Wales in '92. And during the game, I obviously hit a ruck. And my neck had been playing me up during the previous couple of weeks. And I hit a ruck or a maul. And all of a sudden, I just felt the right side of my body, my neck, my arm, and the side go basically numb. And I was sort of, we used to see it a lot with Johnny Wilkinson when he used to put in his big hits coming. The players used to call it like stingers and stuff like that. So I had this stinger in effect. So I'm sort of like, no, I'll run it off. It'll be fine. And all this. But I wasn't running it off. It wasn't sort of going. And then we got to the next scrum, and I couldn't lift my arm up. I couldn't lift my right arm up. And I sort of said to Jeff Brobin, I said, Jeff, I can't bind. And Jeff being Jeff just said, well, just put your arm in there and I'll lock you in there, sort of thing like that. Because Jeff Brobin was a fantastic prop in that aspect. And I managed to get through the rest of the game, because in those days, you never come off. You never come off. You'd have to have an amputation to come off in those days. I got off the pitch, and all the guys, we just won the second Grand Slam of the 1990s. So we won in 91. This was in 92. All the guys were celebrating in the change rooms, and I had to just go in and see the doctor. I can't move my arm. And the doctor and the guys there just said, look, well, let's see how it is. Is it massively painful? I said, no. Again, the adrenaline's going and stuff like that. I'm saying, no, it's not painful, but I can't lift it. Something's happening. It's just not lifting. He said, well, don't worry, you're going to have a couple of drinks tonight, so I'm sure it'll be all right in the morning in that aspect. And then when you woke up the next morning, you're sort of there going, no, this is not right. And then when I went to see the specialist, who was the most experienced spinal surgeon in London, but I think it'd be up there in the world. And it was very matter of fact. He just said, what we'll do is we'll make an incision here at the base of your neck, and then we'll go through your throat, push your voice box to one side, go through the other side, basically get to where all the broken bits of disc and bone is, and we'll just have like a little mini vacuum, and we'll just suck it all up and all this, and we'll take a piece of bone from your pelvis and we'll put it in its place, and then basically it will all heal as no different than breaking an arm or a leg. So the bone calcifies, and it should actually be in theory stronger at that point because there's more bone there, but it also then means that either side of that calcification there's weakness. I don't know. You said Billy was on the week before when he keeps breaking his arm. Yeah. That's either side of where that calcification is. So that was the same with my neck. And he said, but don't worry, you're a fit young man. You're obviously very strong, and I do believe you'll make an absolute 100% recovery. And I'm looking at him and I just said, I'm sorry, I stopped listening once you said push my voice box to one side. I didn't listen to anything else after that. I still had that in my head going, he's going to do what? Something like that. He was really good, but he did say, and I think obviously with a younger player, he said, look, you must follow my advice to the letter. If you don't do what I say, well then it's on your own head be it. And I did. I didn't do anything. I recovered. I convalesced. And then I started up training very slowly. I mean, massively, embarrassingly, like little tiny weights and stuff like that, where every fibre of your body wants to jump in and push and throw and tackle and grab hold of someone and all this. And I couldn't do anything like that. And I trained, I got fitter, I got stronger. And by the time I was able to play, I think I played the next season, I played a couple of games for Quins. And then we had someone like Canada come round, I think it was, pretty much in what would be about October or something like that during the year. And I didn't miss an international. So again, I think that's obviously that's luck, not design.
Amazing. And the rest, as they say, is history. It's been such a long and glorious career, and there are so many chapters, Jace, to what you've done in the game. But can I almost start today and then work back? I mean, between you, the two of you, 598 club appearances, 189 England caps, 5 Grand Slams, 2 World Cup winners' medals. But you are currently the chairman of the British and Irish Lions Board. You're the former president of the RFU. Did you ever think you'd end up as an old fart, so to speak?
As Carling once put it.
No, not really.
Or are you the revolutionary amongst the old farts?
There is an element of that. I mean, I'm a big believer in, and what Will said at the time, which was around 95, when most probably the players' relationship with the RFU was at its, and the RFU board and council was at its worst. That was very much the case. It was a lot of very old men running our game that didn't really understand the modern game in that aspect. The RFU are nowhere near that now. It's changed a hell of a lot, and it still needs to change more, but it is changing in that aspect. And I think my view was it's very easy for people to be outside of that group and stand there pointing the finger and complaining. And my thought was, again, first thing is to contribute, to be able to make a change. But the only way you can make a meaningful change or a sustainable change is from doing it within. You can't do it from outside trying to do it. So I got asked after a few years after retiring from rugby, would you like to come and sit on the RFU council and be a national member to represent actually the professional side of the game? And I replaced, again, we spoke about him just earlier, Jeff Probyn. And it was a great insight into how the game worked. Had the game moved on from Will's comments in 95? Yes. There would still be one or two that was there. But I do think over the years, people have moved on and other people have come in. There's a lot more youth. There's a lot more dynamic group of people there now than what there was when we were speaking in 95. And change is good. Change is good. Change just for the sake of change isn't good. But a progressive change, yeah, it's a much better place than when Will spoke about it before. And indeed, literally when I first joined.
I do want to ask you about the Lions, though. And I remember Sirian McGeechan saying you were the ultimate Lion, I think because of the way you handled 97, etc. But what does it mean to be the chairman of the Lions, and how well set are they for next year? What likelihood of actually getting the tour to where we need it to get to?
It's a huge honour being the British and Irish Lions chairman. I've got to say that now. It really is. It's not the easiest of things because, again, you're always reminding people that we are our bosses to a certain degree is sort of England, Scotland, Ireland and Wales. And we want to make sure that we help them with their rugby. So at this moment in time, they're going through a hard spot. So again, the Lions is there to help these unions, but also the unions that we go around and play against every 4 years. So they only see us once every 12 years in that aspect. So New Zealand, South Africa, Australia, and they're like. For me, there's nothing else like it. You can't explain. Everyone tells. You'd know, Alex. You've interviewed enough people to know. What do you think of the Lions? Well, it's unique. It comes together once every 4 years. It's 4 teams coming together as one, which is very hard. I mean, you do playing a game like rugby. You do have grievances sometimes against people that might spill over in that aspect. So again, you've got to get rid of those. And what other sort of entity has 50,000 travelling fans? I mean, broadcast-wise, I think it'll be sort of viewed in 157 million homes all around the world. Someone told me an ironic one the other day that I didn't know, again, because you think of the brand and what the Lions is. In that season, the Lions shirt will sell more than what a Real Madrid shirt will sell around the world. It's a fantastic concept. I'm hoping it will always be around. I mean, I see my role is like a caretaker, really. I want to make sure that it's around for the next 4 years, and then not only that 4 years, then 40 years, and then just keep on going, because it's such a great thing for the players. The players want to do it and be involved, and the fans want to watch it and go around the world and watch it. the countries that we go and tour, they want us to do it. People want to watch it on the TV. It is quite special. It's a special group of people.
How was it on your, because 93 was your first Lions trip. I do believe there is a story about a well and possibly a sheep.
See, this could be a hard hour for me.
It could make or break many things for you, Jason.
Michael knows far too much about me.
We'll give you one lead the fifth card and one only.
In 1993, well, it was an absolute honour. That was my first Lions tour. That followed the 89 tour to Australia, where they lost the first test, but they won the second and third test, winning the series. So we went to New Zealand, and again, going to New Zealand is not an easy place. So you know you're going against, if not one of the best teams in the world, if not the best team in the world. We went there and we had a great time. It was well hosted in New Zealand, probably more so than we needed to in that aspect. But it was good for rugby, and the rugby was great. But then it became very apparent during the tour, the tour, and this is a problem of a Lions tour sometimes. You get the guys who get selected in the test team and the guys who don't get selected in the test team. There tends to be a split. And all the successful Lions tours there's ever been, there's always that alignment, there's always that togetherness. There's never the split. And it did happen a little tiny bit in 93. So by the time we got through the tour, and it's a long tour, I think it was about a 10-week tour in that aspect, we got to the third test and it was 1-1. We should have won the first test, and we got cheated out of a decision by the referee, actually, in the final minute, where what we thought was a penalty for us got reversed to New Zealand, and they kicked it. Grant Fox kicked it and won the game. The second test, we won convincingly in Wellington. And then by the time the third test came around, everyone was in pieces, battered, and being held together by sticky tape. So we lost that game. And again, you look at it at the end of it, they was deservedly victors in that aspect. But a great experience, as Michael alluded to a little bit earlier. You get, encouraged to go out and have a drink, because again, that's the uniqueness of the Lions in itself, is you don't get enough time to actually meet and bond with people. So you, again, a bit of golf or a couple of away days or a few beers or go out for a meal together and all this. So you want to know. It's easy as an Englishman, me saying, well, I'm okay. I'm here with Brian Moore and sort of Wade Dooley and Dean Richards. I know those guys. But you didn't know some of the other guys. And you wanted to make sure, and I think on one of my first ever Lions meetings, I think it was the first ever meeting, we all walked in, and you guys would appreciate this. We walked in, the English guys would sit over there, and the Irish guys sat over there, and the Welsh guys sat over there, and the Scottish guys sat over there. And fair play to Ian McGeechan, he basically said, guys, this is not what the British and Irish Lions is about. He says, you're not Englishmen, you're not Irishmen, you're not Welsh, you're not Scots. You are all British and Irish Lions. Go back out of this room and come back in as them. Leave your nationalities at the door. And I always remember that. That really resonated with me in that aspect. That's what we want. So, and then we all filed back in, and it was English next to Irish, next to Welsh, next to Scots and stuff like that. There was no little cliques in that aspect, which always is the death knell of a Lions tour. So we went out one night, and it was in a very quiet place called Rotorua. There's not much going on in Rotorua in 1993. And we got to the hotel, and a group of us, only 4 of us, and it sounds like it's got to be an England, Ireland, Scotland joke, a Welsh joke, because it was sort of me, Gavin Hastings, Scott Gibbs, and Nick Popplewell. And we all sort of dropped our bags in, and we sort of like gambled. Should we go
if you take Hastings out of that is a dangerous trio, by the way.
Well, it was just well meant. Again, it's just again bonding and come on, let's go out for a quick beer. And we sort of say to the guy behind the room, so where's your nearest pub? And he basically said the only pub is go out of the hotel, you walk about a mile, and then you chuck a right at the lights, and you walk a mile, and the pub's up there. And we went, great, lovely. So we go out of the hotel, we walk a mile, turn right at the lights, walk a mile, find the pub, have a few drinks, have a great time in there, actually. It's a really good night. Most of us stay in there too long, so we start looking at our watches, right, okay, better get going. Gavin's the captain, so he's like, yeah, no, come in, guys, so we'll get going. By the time we walk out, it is sort of the early morning, early hours in the morning. And we come out, and as I said, there's not much going on the road through. So we're now a little bit wobbly. Do we really want to walk a mile to the traffic lights and then chuck a left and walk up to the hotel up there? No, so Gavin had this great idea. Why don't we just walk straight across the farmer's field and we can go straight to the hotel? The lights of the hotel is on over there. We said, what a great idea. So we walked across the field, and we're walking across the field for, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. And we come to what can only be described as a ravine. And you're a little bit worse for wear, so you look one way and there's no bridge. There's no bridge over there. Sort of look the other way. Oh, there's no bridge over there. So what do? You take a couple of steps back and you think about a run and jump, and you're sort of like, no, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. So what else do you do when you've already had a few drinks? It's like we find out how deep it is. So I think Gavin picked up something much about the size of a pebble, and he tossed it in this ravine. And we're all four of us standing there, sort of literally moving like this in the wind, waiting to hear a splash, waiting to hear it hit rock to see how deep it is. We hear nothing. So all of a sudden, I think Scott Gibbs picks up something about the size of a house brick, and he tosses it in. And we're sort of like, there's still nothing. So Nick Popperwell goes off and he finds something like a small football, like a Gaelic football, and he tosses it in, and absolutely nothing. So I go off. I'll go, right, I'll find something. I'll find something that makes a splash. And I get this old moss-covered rock, and it takes all my strength to move this rock. It's huge. And I get it to the edge of the ravine, and I tip it in, thinking that this bastard's going to make a splash in that aspect. So I tip it in, and all of a sudden as I tip it in, it's hard to explain. All this chain link, all this silver chain link come fizzing past me. I'm literally whiz, whiz, whiz. I'm standing there like, what the bloody hell's that? And as this chain link keeps on whizzing past, at the end of it, there's and this goat went flying down this ravine. And we all stood there looking at each other as in, did that really happen? And again, me being a city kid, so I don't really frequent farms. I don't know farmers tie farmyard animals to objects like that. I think we all look at each other, and I think Gavin turns around and says, I'll tell you what, lads, we'll just go back out to the street. We walk a mile down the road, we get to the lights, and we walk a mile back up to the hotel. So, yeah, no, I've never found out what happened to that guy.
I do love story time with Uncle Jace. It's Jack and Ori at its very best. It's interesting that you mentioned the fact that you weren't a kid of the country growing up. I mean, so am I right in saying you were a kid of quite a lot of energy growing up? I mean, if we go right back to the beginning here, you became obviously famously a carpenter from East London, went to a football school, major links with West Ham.
The carpenter is rumoured that he also just photocopied those certificates as well.
Is that right? Were you genuinely a carpenter?
No, I'm a chippy. Don't listen to him.
Is that right? What did you make?
I always laugh when Michael had the dig earlier about being padded down by Zara.
Yeah. And
I did laugh because I was thinking, right, if he brings it up, I'll shut him up, because on one of their first games together, I brought a couple of clients to the game, and we're in the post-match function. Michael and the team comes in with all the girls, and they've had a great time from Twickenham on the buses, getting back to the Royal Lancaster or something like that. And Zara's on me. I'm talking to these two work guys. And Zara's literally gone, Jace! And she's literally just grabbed my backside. She's grabbed my backside. And she's given it a squeeze, and she's gone, God, Jace, still firm. Still working out. Well done, you. And I'm like, okay, so she goes, are you going to come and join us? And Michael was captain at the time. Said, are you going to come and join us upstairs to the captain's room upstairs? And I went, no, I'm not. I've got a couple of guests here and all this. But very kind to me. Off she went. I said, not a problem. The two guys I've got as guests, their jaws are down here. I'm looking at them going, what's the matter with you? Something like that. And they're going, you've just had your backside grabbed by a princess. And I went, I know. I said, but I didn't have the heart to tell her. What she grabbed was actually my wallet in my back. It wasn't my backside.
Very firm indeed.
Yes,
I can only imagine. There's a great affection from Zed to Jace. We were watching earlier on as well, and rightly so as well. Take me back to the chippy. What did you make? Were you furniture?
No, we've a family of chippies. My old man and all his brothers. So roofing, loft extensions at the time, extensions. Actually, some of the best wages I used to earn was funny enough, back in those days, was like shuttering and stuff like that. For
Really?
heavy machinery on blocks and stuff like that. It's what you did. My dad's a chippy, all his brothers were chippies. So basically, I got dragged into the sort of family firm in that aspect.
Were you good at it?
I was all right. I've got to say that now. I think, and you mostly do lose this over generations. I tend to think of my old man, his brothers, like their fathers and stuff like their father and stuff like that, as artisans, as craftsmen, where I think as you're a little bit younger, you're a bit impatient and it's just like, throw it up there, just stick it up there, this and the other. But my dad and his brothers were very much, what are you doing? What are you doing? No, take your time. It's make sure it's perfect and all that. And I think, no, I don't think I was a great builder in that aspect. I was too quick, wanted to get onto the next job, get me money, go out that night, go out with the rugby lads, spend it, borrow it off of someone else the next day to go back down to the rugby club the next day.
You were for the game born. So I picked out some bits from your book. A lot of energy as a kid, as I said. You once blew up your grandma, age 4, tried to set off fireworks in school, shot a man in the backside from your bedroom window with an air rifle, and challenged the entire school to hurt you by punching you as hard as they could in the stomach. I mean, you were born for the game. There's a story in every one of those. But tell me about you as a kid.
I think, like a lot of kids, and it's quite interesting to see people like Ellis Genge and Carl Sinclair talking now about getting kids from different areas. I grew up in the concrete jungle. We had a football pitch, but we didn't really have a rugby pitch. We went and played a couple of rugby teams, but we didn't really have a rugby pitch in that aspect. But rugby is the perfect outlet for an excitable child. It's great. It gives you discipline, the respect, everything that's within our game, the values, the camaraderie, the teamship, stuff like that. It was great. And I always thought that I was a very big child. I know that's very hard for you to believe. So at school, I was always being told, put him down, Leonard, or whatever it would be, and stuff like that. Where all of a sudden then that would morph onto the rugby field, and I'd be having the same teacher saying, go on, smash him, go on, hit him.
Pick him up, Leonard.
Yeah. So that was what really attracted me but again, it was the values that go with it as well. So again, even though in those days, obviously, the different game, but you could still walk off the pitch and you would shake hands and whatever it would be and stuff like that. And I think that's what really got me. That and the camaraderie, as in the guys that I used to play with then, I'm still mates with now.
Are you a West Ham fan, or have I made that up?
Yeah. No. Sadly, I am. No. Yeah, well, I've got nothing to shout about. So go on. If you're going to
we'll move swiftly on. Did you play football as a kid? As growing up in that environment?
Yeah. Good? I used to play. I'd just be a general defender, and I'd play football like my rugby. I'd just kick someone up in the air,
elbows high.
Exactly. Yeah, it was on these. I think at one point with my school year, I was the only person in the whole team that wasn't on the county side, because I was basically there to chop someone down, even if it was a one-on-one with a goalkeeper, and the goalkeeper was a great keeper that was on the county side. I was there to chop someone down. So my limited football skills was not going to get me far, put it that way.
You've always been very good at knowing your role. So tell me about turning up at Barking Rugby Club and suppose taking up rugby. I mean, was it to the manor born?
I think I went there from a school teacher in one aspect from my school, and they was running something at the time. It was like an under-14s team, and I was young for that. And then I think by the time I turned 15, I was playing in their under-19s, which we all three of us know that can be quite a significant difference in size in that aspect. But because I was a chunky monkey as a kid in that aspect and loved that physicality, it was perfect for me. I think everyone's got a story about their rugby club and where they grew up and what it's like and stuff like that. And my rugby club, Barking, is exactly the same. You just got a wonderful group of people, and the clubhouse was nothing special. It was a disused air raid shelter. That was my first club at Barking. And again, I remember stories of the guys 10 or 20 years before me. They used to just change in the local pub. and then run out onto Barking Park in that aspect. So again, you look now and you look at clubs and you look at the facilities and you're going, oh my God. And there was never any warm water when you got in the showers, and you're following the first team or whatever it would be and all this, and you bite the bullet. That's what it's like. Shut up, youngster. What are you talking about? Learn your way, sort of thing like that. And I just loved it. And I still love it. I get more joy, funny enough, going to junior rugby clubs than what I most probably would do going to Premiership rugby clubs. Not because the day itself. I love going to rugby, full stop. But you just get the impression that a junior rugby club, it means so much then to have you there, and again to do something, or you might be at the president's lunch or something to say a few words or pull out the winning raffle or whatever it would be. Where sometimes at the Premiership rugby, they don't need us. That's great. I'm not that worried about that. You just see so much more, such good things going on at junior rugby clubs. It's just amazing. It just shows you how great our game is.
I've always said that from when I retired. Obviously I retired in 2014, and I was getting a little bit, I wanted to carry on for another year for personal reasons, but at the same time, the last 2 years have been so frustrating in terms of law changes, everything that was going on with the game. Whereas if you jumped for a ball and someone else jumped and someone happened to, you collided and someone landed on their neck or shoulders, you got a red card or you got a yellow card. And I was like, this is just sort of bullshit, really. The whole point of rugby is to be a competition in every aspect of the game. And then obviously when I finished, I've still missed it. I still love running around, which is why I still try and do it whenever I can now. And I went to my local club in Minch, and obviously the RFU had helped them out in terms of building them 3 pitches, and then they built their own changing rooms. And when I said they built it, they had a guy who was an architect, the guy who was a chippy, guy who was an electrician, and between all of them, they built the clubhouse. And then you go and you play on the field, and they're there. They're there, they're working all week, and that is their outlet. So it's just a completely different sort of mindset, and everything that when we turned professional, and when you say it was professional, it was semi-pro back in the late 90s, it was still there. And obviously through professionalism, it has had to leave, but it's great to go back to club rugby and still see that rugby as a base, what everyone's seeing 90% of the time, is still that great game that's built around the socials, built around a community, built around friendship. And that's why I like going to local rugby clubs and doing that side of thing as well, because you actually see what you want to see about the game that I remember when I first sort of took it up professionally and what it was. And Bath was great in the original days where you'd finish the match and you would literally have to go, your sort of post-match would be go stand in the bar for 4 hours with all the fans who give their life to it, and you get to know them all so well. And then slowly sponsors came in and that changed, and it's great that I still think club rugby is what it is, and Woolwich and Hampton still serve port at half time if you want it, and it's perfect for me.
Warm you through for the second half.
Yeah, exactly.
What's really interesting about what you've both sort of highlighted there, and actually, Jason, you don't need me to tell you, but for all that you've achieved in the game, your reputation as such a popular, genial character within the sport is equally as sort of notable. I mean, everybody knows you as the player who would always go and find your opposite number to swap shirts and have a pint. And it's no surprise that junior clubs love having you because of the person that you are and your perspective on the game as well. I want to ask you 2 questions about starting out, actually, about your England debut in a moment, but also just about going back to Barking. And there's an amazing quote about club officials uneasily aware that he was below the minimum age for adult rugby, were immediately reassured as his opposite number from Braintree RFC was lifted out of the first scrum. That perspective that you have on the game, were you always comfortable in every game you played, or did you do nerves and angst and pressure? It just seems that you are a character who has always taken everything that's come your way in your stride.
Nerves, not in the way you say, excitement, relish, most probably is how I would look at something like that.
Yeah, I don't see that as nerves and angst.
Yeah,
that's running towards the wave, not away from it.
Yeah, but again, a little bit like what Michael was saying about the rugby club, but the team. You're running towards it, but you're running towards it with 14 other people, and knowing that you wouldn't swap that moment for anything in the world. Again, you try and enjoy it. You talk to a lot of younger players now, and a lot of it is very focused. It's a lot serious, and But try and enjoy it. And there is less enjoyment there in that aspect. There's financial gain where that never used to be there. I mean, my first sort of England trip, again, Argentina, what you were saying, it was like actually going on tour with a bunch of kleptomaniacs because it was amateur. They were stealing everything. But I room with Gary Pearce, and Gary Pearce is a lovely bloke. I mean, he played 12 years for England, and he had the record before Jeff Probyn had the record as a prop regarding appearances. And I walked into the room, and the rooms in the hotel, you'd have the single beds because you're sharing with each other in those days, obviously. And I walk in, and they're like, right, there's my bed, right, there's your bed, and go have a few drinks when we come back. And I come back to the room a bit later than Gary, and I'm sort of, where is he? He's not in the bed. He's not in the cinema. All of a sudden, there's a light on in the bathroom. So I'm like, he must be in there using the loo. So I give him a bit of privacy. I was like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. I'm going, is he died? What's happened to him? Sort of thing like that. So I sort of give a knock on the door, and Gary's like, yeah. I was like, all right, you are in there then. Are you okay? And all this. He went, yeah, I'm fine. Like, really? He went, yeah. And he opened the door. And what he's been doing for the last 15 minutes, he's trying to unscrew one of those plastic hair dryers off the wall. But these were the real old tacked hair dryers that you would never have. And I'm thinking, but it's utter rubbish. Why would you want to steal one of those? And Gary's looking at me as he's unscrewing it off the wall. He's going, because I haven't got one. That was his excuse. And this was a guy come the World Cup final in 1991 when we lost that final against Australia. We were all at the black tie do afterwards, and he's already said he's retiring. And then literally he gets up, he puts 2 tablespoons or teaspoons in his top pocket of his black jacket, his black tie, and off he goes. And I thought, okay, that's a bit strange. I'll go find what Gary's doing. So I caught him in the bar and said, what's the matter? And he goes, well, that's it, I'm retired now and all this and the other. So basically sticking 2 fingers up to it and all this. I was like, oh, right, okay. And he goes, anyway, and he went like that with his top pocket. He went, well, I got what I wanted anyway. I went, what's that? And he pulled out these 2 silver spoons. And he said, well, I've been playing rugby for England for 12 years. So every dinner after a game, I've gone home with cutlery. And he goes, and I needed these 2 spoons to finish like a 12-piece cutlery set. And I'm there thinking, he's my God. He's my God. How fantastic is that?
Unbelievable. It's like Hilton Escape to Victory, 1 grain of sand at a time, and he's got that. We're going to come back to the bathtub though, Jace, because you obviously you learnt well from those in front of you. Tell me about 1990. So only 8 years after the Falklands War, and you mentioned that tour to Argentina, and obviously the fact that players came home with hairdryers. But tell me about your first England experience and the cauldron of that tour on the field.
I don't think we realised the depth of emotion in Argentina. Yes, we understood, we was aware of obviously being the first, not English team, but the first United Kingdom team going into Argentina. But obviously what had gone on prior to that with the Falklands, and no matter where we toured, you always found a pocket or somewhere that had lost fathers, brothers, uncles, whatever it would be, sons. So tempers, feelings were running very high in that aspect. And I don't suppose we thought that through, really. We thought there might be a bit of that. I know that for a fact, but not to the level of what it was. Because some of the games were, I mean, in those days, it was refereed by a local referee, which just created carnage, because actually it was 80 minutes of fighting. And to be quite honest, when you've got games like that, the ball only gets in the way in that aspect. And the referees weren't having any of it. And so it ended up being quite a bitter tour, like, where we're always fighting and always arguing with officials and this and the other. And I think at that England side at the time, the pack of forwards that we had wasn't shy of a bit of violence. I mean, we had so many coppers in our team. They're so used to it and stuff like that. So we went around all of Argentina, which I loved. I loved the country. And again, I loved the people. And but it was a tough tour for a young player. But again, with those players, the calibre of players that was playing, they basically just said, "You concentrate on your game. Don't worry about anything else. You concentrate on your game, and we'll deal with everything else." And I always remember playing my game. And again, because you in those days you couldn't like Tim's to back me up. Like the end of our career, you're getting so much stash. That's part of the reason why I'd get rid of a load of it. It's like, I don't need that. I don't need that. I don't need this. But you could swap shirts. You could keep one shirt. You've got another shirt to swap. In those days, you kept told you like your shirt, because it was like that. You don't know when you're going to get it back. I remember one of my first early games for England at Twickenham is I put one of the socks on, one of the England socks on, and I must have had a tag and a bit of nail hanging out on my toe, on my big toe, and I've obviously laddered my sock. So I've obviously gone, and the groundsman at the time was also the kit man, Ken. And I've gone to knocked on his door. He's come to the door. He's gone, "What do you want?" And I've gone, "Well, I've gone and laddered my sock, so I can't stand there for the national anthem with a great big hole in my sock. So is there any chance you can give me another sock, Ken?" And he went, "Go get me the sock." I went, "Okay, no problem." So I'll go back. I come back. I put my hand through the sock and sort of poked my thumb out, saying, "Look there, got the hole." And he went, "Yeah, no problem. Give us it here." So he takes the sock off me. He's got a pair of socks. He opens up the pair of socks and then he hands me one sock. And I'm looking going, "Really?" And he goes, "Well, you've got one sock that's got a hole in it. I've just given you one sock back." I'm like, "Right, okay, that's how it works," sort of thing like that. Yeah. But it was in those days, as I said, so you didn't swap as much stuff as what players do now. You kept hold of it, or you swapped it with someone who really meant something. And very early in my career, obviously Jeff Probyn, who was a mentor to me in many ways, he come in with my first shirt. I couldn't swap my first shirt, obviously, because that's your first shirt. But he'd swapped his shirt for me, and he'd come in and give me an Argentinian shirt. So later on in my career, I made a big point of new caps and stuff like that. Again, it sounds really corny because, again, you're giving away your shirt, but it's not. The shirt represents everything that's great in rugby and what you've done and everything like that. But it's the memories that go with it as well. So I'd always try and do that. And I did that, I remember, with Tim's as well.
Yeah.
So and it's a cool thing to do.
The Queensland game in '99 on the centenary tour test to Australia. So I played in the midweek game, and Jace played, and he gave me his shirt, so I could swap his shirt with a Queensland shirt to keep it. I was going to keep his, but then I realised it was slightly oversized for me at the time. So, but then that sort of shaped what I was about in later life, and that's why Jace was so good in terms of us coming into that team, the young kids who came in. To have someone like Jace who just set bars of where you need to be, not just as a player, but as a bloke. Yes, you're going to lose games, but still you're building memories with people who you're going to meet who are from the opposition team. You're going to build memories with your friends that play alongside you. And it's sort of, you talk about now how serious people are and how serious the game is, whereas I think we bonded and got closer, which helped us in our performances because of the way that we approached it, which was having fun on and off the field, and that worked for us at that time. Whether it would work now, you never know, but I'm pretty sure it still would. But it was a huge thing for me, and my mum and dad were so happy as well. They'd flown out there to watch it, and once I told them that Jason had done that, they sort of fell in love with Jason, even though I'm pretty sure they would have done anyway.
I think everybody does, don't they? We've got to take a break in a minute. I just want to ask you, Jace, just about, I suppose, because I want to talk about World Cups and all other bits like that, but the early part of your career was alongside, a remarkable collection of individuals. Brian Moore, Wade Dooley, you mentioned Dean Richards, Mike Teague, Mickey Skinner. Do you keep in touch with the old guard, so to speak? Do you see Moro on the circuit? And do you still feel 21 and ready to conquer the world when you get back together? Or do you all feel now, actually, the hips popped out and the knee doesn't work and the neck, I can't turn left, etc.? I mean, do you know what I mean? Are you still boys when you get back together?
I don't think there's an element of that. You always see all those guys, because again, being quite lucky playing in quite a number of eras in that aspect in the England side, seeing some of the older players, but then catching up with Tins or Balsh or whoever it would be gives you just as much joy, it's just as much fun that you catch up, see what's going on with the families and this and the other. But you're always going to talk about what about this, what about that, and And those guys that I first started playing with are a special group of people. Some of the finest England players. Brian Moore's a great hooker. Jeff Probyn was probably one of the most underrated tights, but he's one of the best in the world. You have a look at our second rows, Dooley and Ackford, fantastic, athletic second row. Dooley, possibly one of the biggest thugs you could ever have in rugby. And you was just so grateful to have him on your team. But then you have a look at the back row. Any one of those back rows, you had Peter Winterbottom, to me, was one of the finest players that ever pulled on an England shirt. You had Dean Richards, another. There's players that, again, that want to be Dean Richards because he was so great. Same with Wince, same with Teague. And you have a look at the other players that were around there that didn't really get in. Skins was in there, but he was in and then out and stuff like that. But he was a fantastic player. You had Gary Rees from Nottingham. You had Andy Robinson from Bath. Obviously, he's an overside flanker in those days as well. So you had all these great players all around there. And again, you just catch up and it's fun and it's this. But it's one of these things I think we're actually very poor at. I think rugby, from memory, Tins, we've only had one reunion from 2003, haven't we? That was 2013.
Yeah.
And we should do more of it.
Full reunion, yeah.
Yeah, we should do more of it. And then again, but the same with 91 and 92. We've been very poor in doing something around that, which, again, hopefully we can do so. But it's got to be something that we want to do as well in that aspect. I don't think you can ask someone else to do it at this moment in time. I think it'd be wrong and inappropriate in that aspect. But we've not really done as much as what we should do. But when you do catch up and you're seeing someone on the circuit, you do have a great catch up for a very, very small amount of time. But then you're either both working or it's a charity thing where I've got to go and join these people over here. I've got to hand out the prize. I'll try and catch you later. And of course, you're in an event of sort of 200, 300, 400, 500 people. You never catch up properly in that aspect.
Let's take a little break. Still to come, we're going to talk about bridging the amateur and professional game. We'll talk about social organising and we'll talk about disappearing bathtubs as well. But you're listening to and watching The Good, The Bad and The Rugby on 21/6 Sport with me, Alex Payne, alongside Mike Tindall and the aforementioned legend that is Sir Jason Leonard. Actually, we ought to start that campaign, actually. We need to get a bit of momentum into that one. Tins, have a word. Don't forget you can sign up to our social media sites, which thousands and thousands of you have done over the last couple of weeks. Thank you for doing that. Lovely to see you all. I hope you're being nice to each other. Suffice to say, we'll be dipping in and out of there on occasion and stepping over Hask's velvet rope as well and coming into the Facebook group. That's also where you'll find all of the information about the show as well. We've got special events coming. We've got a whole host of great content lined up as well, starting on Friday with a Q&A session with Hask. If you can call that great content. He's currently in Marbella, I think. So God knows what state he'll be in when he gets back. And there'll be a specific thread on the Facebook group where you can leave your questions and we will put the best ones to him. Just type in Good Bad Rugby across social media. We are fairly easy to find.
Obviously, if you look at that forward pack that you had in 90 when you started, and then basically the pack that then was there for the next, 5-6 years, and then obviously the younger boys that then came in with Lol coming in, and how hard was what forward play was in 90 and how it progressed through to sort of 96 where it turned professional and the laws changed a bit in terms of dark arts and walking the line on the firm side. How hard was it to make those transitions? Because obviously you went all the way through and went to quite a well professional era in 2004. How hard is it to cut away from the slipper? And I know that you got run over a few times. There's a great story, isn't there, about you in Ireland where the full pack ran over you and ripped your shirt off your back, and there was a very lovely man in the crowd, I think. So how hard is it to sort of make those adjustments as a prop forward? Because I'll never forget 2000, the knee drop in, was it Van Straten's back?
Have I not taken the fifth on something yet?
No,
you haven't.
And that was only in the first half of the show as well. You had to use it before the break, I'm afraid. So we need the England-Ireland story and Bram Van Straten.
The England-Ireland story is quite an easy one. It was I got called in to England to play. I never thought I was going to get selected. I was injured at the time. I'd recovered from an injury. And I didn't think I was going to get selected, so I didn't train. So I'd put on a bit of weight, and quite a considerable bit of weight. And got told by the then manager, Jack Rowe, right, you're in, and you're only in for one reason, because you're there to scrummage against an Irish tight called Peter Closely, the Claw. And I said, well, I'm going to struggle, Jack, because, I mean, you've not seen me. 2 stone overweight or whatever it would be. He said, no, it's fine. I said, no. I said, I'm going to struggle. I'm not going to be able to get around the pitch. I'm not. And he said, no, I don't want you to. I just want you and this claw to sort of be fighting at every single opportunity, basically. And I said, right, okay, I can do that. That's quite a big part of my game, so I'm quite happy with that. And during the game, I went down on a loose ball where the whole of the Irish pack come over the top and kick lumps at me. And in those days, we used to also wear very long, sharp studs as well. So just to make sure that someone who would stay there most probably a second or two too long wouldn't stay there a second or two too long. And I come flying out of the back. And I actually always remember, because of my injury, I had these neoprene shorts on, and they'd actually torn the whole leg off one of these neoprene shorts, which are so thick in material. And I remember the referee was Derek Bevan. So I looked up at him, and he fair play to him. He said, I hope you're not going to complain about that, boy. You was on the wrong side. And I went, no, you're completely right, sir. I said, but as long as you give me the same consideration when someone else is there. And he went, by all means, Jason, by all means. So they'd ripped off, the Irish side the pack had ripped off this shorts, this leg, thigh part. But the whole of my back and my jersey had been lacerated, been ripped to pieces. And as I got up, you got up a bit and you're like, oh, didn't expect that. That's a bit much. And we used to have a great little physio for England at the time called Kevin Murphy. His nickname was Smurf, come running on the pitch. And in those days, all it was the magic sponge. And he's got a bucket, he's got his sponge in it or whatever is in there. And he said, right, hold on a second, Jason. What is it? I said, my back, mate, that's not right. Something like that. And he's got my shirt. He didn't have to pull my shirt out of my shorts. He actually opened up the shirt like this, like a set of curtains. And when you hear your own physio go, you know you're in a bad spot, something like that. So I said, what is it? He said, no, it's fine. Don't worry about it. So he gets the sponge, starts applying the sponge and all this. By this time, the play 30 yards to the left of me has stopped. So they're now all waiting for me to come over for this scrum. There's been a knock-on. And there's silence around the old Lansdowne Road Stadium. And I said, I better get over there. Right, yeah, better get going then. Okay. And as I start trying to get over to where the scrum's going to be, all I heard was this Irish lad shout at the top of his voice, Leonard, you don't need a physio. You need a fucking midwife. So, and all I wanted to do was get my hands on that one guy. But never did. But again, at the end of it, I mean, during the games, you'd always have a laugh with someone. Me and Keith Wood used to try and buckle each other every England and Ireland game because we were best mates and we played at Harlequins and we used to literally go into England-Ireland matches going, what's the score at the moment? Is it 2-1 or is it 3-1? I'm not too sure. So who's leading at the moment and all this? But it was just that physicality, and it's now changed into a different game in that aspect. That's been taken out of it, the thuggery, and rightly so in that aspect. And now that violence now is in the contact, whether it's carrying a ball or making a tackle or whatever it would be. It's not violence per se, but it's that collision, it's that damage, it's what it could be in that aspect. But in those days, again, as Michael said, you didn't really have to do that much. It was more of a set-piece game. And again, even still now that you'd get a fly half or a fullback, make a fantastic kick to touch, and then the crowd sort of, fantastic and all this. And you're there, why couldn't you do this or why can't you do that? And how the game changed. You saw different people, Johnny Wilkinson, and how they played the game differently, how the fly halves and someone like Tins, the physicality of what Tins brings and stuff like that. So, yeah, the game did change, but you've got to change with it or try to adapt with it as well.
Yeah, the Brammer Stratton.
Talking fly halves.
I'd made a line break through, or someone had offloaded it to me, and I'd break through, and Van Straten, in all fairness, had made a great tackle from behind and lassoed me, but laid on the wrong side. Jace was the first there, because Jace was still in fantastic nick. He was always in the right place at the right time. And I think he'll always regret it. He tried to basically buy some time for maybe the fullback to stick his head over and try and steal the ball. Jace, straight in, dropped his knees to his back. Referee blows straight away. It might have been Derek Bevan. I can't remember who ref, but
Stuart Dickinson.
Stuart, yes, it was.
Dickinson from Australia.
You know your refs.
Great referee.
Straight away went for the card, and Jason went, well, even I couldn't resist that one, Stuart, as he's walking off. The chance to get a 10 right in the middle of, really put the 10 under pressure. I don't think he got up. And Jason's like, I had to do it. Stuart was like, well, okay, but you held the card. He's like, yeah, I'm off. Okay, bye. It was just so matter-of-factly, the fact that I just had to do it. It was it was too easy.
That didn't end there. So that happened. And then the fact that he was there and the referee wasn't blowing the whistle, so it was a bit of retribution in that aspect. And the referee understanding the why that happened, because he was a good, solid ref, Stu Dickinson was. But we get in at half-time. So mindful of the fact I've got, I missed the last 5 minutes of the first half because I'm sitting on the chair with a jacket and stuff. Get in the changing room. And I remember Clive going absolutely mad. Everyone ran the changing room, basically saying, right, you need to do this and you need to improve and you need to do this and you need this. And he got around to me. Clive said, and I can't believe it, our most experienced player of all time has just produced the most blatant bit of thuggery I've ever seen and was lucky not to get sent off. And then literally went on to next person. And I think I was sitting next to Lawrence, and I given Lawrence a nudge. And I said to Lowell, I said, why is he having a go at me? And Lowell went, Jason, it was pretty bad. I've got to say that now, it was pretty bad. I said, but why is he having a go at me? And Lowell went, what are you talking about? I said, well, I've just won this game. And Lowell looked at me like, he said, where do you think you've just won this game? I went, because he ain't coming out for the second half. I can tell you that now. And he didn't come out for the second half, and we did win the game.
There you are. The games are won in mysterious ways, and we will hand you full credit for that.
Definitely Brilliant. One of the best tours.
Obviously, was that 2000?
Yeah,
2000.
Yeah.
It was. It still had an element of old school about it. And again, Clive comes in for a lot of stuff and all this. But one thing Clive was very good at is he believed in, right, if you've done well and you've won games, go out and enjoy yourself and stuff like that. And nice. But it was just one of those where we also still had, if I remember rightly, we had a midweek game in a really weird way.
Yeah, it was. So it went midweek test.
Midweek. And Clive basically said, look, guys, you can go out and do whatever you like. Just do not wake up the players for the midweek game, because that'd be very unfair. And you've just won your second test and all this and the other. Which didn't exactly go to plan in that aspect.
Go on.
Is this the golf cart? I'm not involved in this one. This is it.
Well, you are involved. You are, of course, you are involved, because
I wasn't involved in that.
You were always the instigator of where we went out. You started the nights. You planned it all for us. You were the social secretary of creating carnage.
I knew the places to go.
I facilitated.
I take no responsibility in what happens there.
Look, basically what happened is Jason organised this great night out, and we've come back, and for some reason, I don't know how this has happened, I've ended up coming back with Austin Healy at about 4:30, something that I try to never do, because why would you want to be coming back with Austin Healy? I don't know. But anyway, we got back to the hotel. There was no buggies. There was no one in reception, just buggies lying there with keys in. So we decided to drive up to our room instead of walking up. We've sort of got up to where we are. I've turned the buggy around. We've both got out. We're walking towards the building, and we just hear this massive boom. So obviously, I've looked at Austin. Austin's looked at me, and we've both said good night, mate. And we've gone to bed. Now in this room, there was the really fancy TVs that came out the bottom of the bed when they wanted to do a team meeting. So this bed's gone beep 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 out the bed. 7:30 team meeting. Everyone be there. So I've immediately got out going, fuck, me and Oz are in trouble here. So we've walked into the room. I've sat next to Oz going, mate, should we just stand up now and get this meeting over with, pay what we've got to pay to repair it and move on? And Oz is like, no, let's just see what's going on first. And anyway, so Clive comes in, and Clive doesn't often get angry because he doesn't look he just doesn't have that threat when he's angry, but he's fuming. And he's coming in like lads, 2 things happened last night that basically do not fall into our code of conduct, what we are as people and how we want to represent ourselves as England Rugby, and they need sorting out now. And I'm like, fuck, come on, Oz. He's like, hang on, there's two things. Let's see which one's worse. He goes, right, I'm going to start with the one that's quite easy to deal with. He goes, first and foremost, there is a golf buggy parked in room 31 of the hotel. I don't know how it got there, but it needs fucking paying for and sorting out. So as I've gone to stand up, Oz just held me down and go, let's see what's number one first. He goes, right, and number one, in reception, you will have noticed the velvet shrine around this bottle of this crystal decanter, which was full of Louis Trey cognac. This was given to the hotel by Nelson Mandela to celebrate his release from Robben Island and the end of apartheid. It's not there anymore. And he's looked to Lol and he's called Lol out. He goes, Lol, you're in charge of this shit show. Make sure I want everything sorted now. And Lol's like, the chin's fully gone out. He's got a right head on now. And so we had this numbering off system and he's gone, right, everyone number off. So basically alphabetically 1 to 35, go. So we all go and we figure out that Danny Grewcock's not there and Dave Flatman. So I've seen Lol, he's beelining for Danny's room. So anyway, as we sort of walk it, as I'm following him, there's like boom, boom, boom on the door. And Danny, it's pitch black in there. And Lol walks over the curtains, opens it, streaming light coming in. And Danny's like, whoa, what's the matter? He goes, have you seen a crystal decanter? And he's like, well, what are you talking about, Lol? He goes, well, what the fuck is that on top of the TV? I don't care what you fill it with, but it's got to be back on reception right now. So if you ever go to the Westcliff Hotel in Joburg, please do not drink the Louis Trey in the shrine, because it is not cognac anymore.
I dread to think what it will be. Perhaps you'll pop in for a quick nightcap when we're out there for the Lions, Jace. I don't know. Yeah. We can have a little.
Well, it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to go and see if it's still there.
It does sound like a lot of fun playing for England in that era. I mean, do you look back on it now as the fading light of amateurism and, you know, the toys and the success and the trappings of professionalism? Jace, do you look back on that with the fondest of memories? If you could go back now and play one more year, would you go to your early years, to the middle years, to the end years? What was the most fun?
They're all fun in that aspect because you've got to have fun doing it. It's not worth it otherwise. And you've got to enjoy it. That's the other side of it as well. I think you got away with a lot more in the amateur era than obviously being a professional. And people could sort of roll their eyes and just go, oh, it's just the rugby lads or whatever it is. And then as soon as you become a professional, it does change. And rightly so with that as well. But I think, again, you've still got to have enjoyment there. And I thought, actually, even the back end of my career, Clive, his coaches, we'd work. I mean, we'd work very hard. They put us through the mincer. Very early days of professional rugby, no one really knew what was going on. So some of the training sessions we did were absolutely stupid, moronic, to be quite honest. I mean, but it was a case of finding our feet and how we could do it. And then we ended up fine-tuning stuff. But you have a look at Clive, you have a look at his coaches. I mean, something simple like Phil Larder as a defensive coach. Now, we all could tackle, but no one ever coached us to tackle in that aspect. Or what was the purpose of the tackle? Are you trying to just stop someone? Are you trying to stop someone offloading? Is it a double hit? And we'd never even thought of that there possibly could be tactics around tackling and stuff like that. But even doing that was hard work. I mean, we got flogged hours and hours on the training field to work through those processes. But genuinely, I'd say one of them, what I could say, my most improved part of my game would most probably be tackling, understanding what you're doing in a line and what your place in that team is when you're actually in a defensive line. Phil Larder was one of those. David Redding, I've got to say that now. I mean, he doesn't get a lot of credit, but the fitness guru, he was fantastic. Absolutely great in what we did. But he's another one. He enjoyed his guys. You're working hard. Go and have a couple of pints. Go and do this and the other.
Just on that, on Dave Redding, I always remember going to Will Greenwood's stag, and as I was forcing Sambuca down Dave Redding's throat, he was like, this was just after we got from the summer tour in 2003 when we got back, and we had like a month till we went into camp, and he was like, and we were getting smashed, and he was He was like, this is a disgrace. I'm going to kill you in camp. I said, don't worry, you might not get to camp. And I'm like pouring things down his throat. He goes, you might kill me in camp, but I'm going to take it out on you right now. I mean, that was the thing. It was the balance of, no one could ever say that we didn't work hard. I think that Clive learned, didn't he? 99, he got that fitness side of it wrong. We weren't allowed to take breaks. If you dropped out of a session, then he basically took you out the squad. The famous story of Gareth Archer basically handing back all his stuff and said, this is bullshit, I'm out. And then Clive,
I've never heard that before.
Basically, it got to the point where Arch had been in good nick and we'd done all this training and you weren't allowed to leave. You weren't allowed to leave a session, were you, Jason? Or basically you were out. And something like I think Arch had seen that he'd got cellulite now on his legs. He'd been doing all this training. He had cellulite on his legs. He's like, this is bullshit. I'm out. He brought all his gear back, his laptop, stuck it on there. He said, fuck it, he can stuff his fucking laptop. And basically walked out of the hotel and didn't come back. And then, Clive had to sort of beg him to come back. But we just got the training so wrong. We overtrained in that one. But then, as you said, Dave Redding sort of stepped up in the 03 one. And if Clive was going on for a minute longer than what he was supposed to, Dave Redding just got on that field and went, right, Clive, that's it. You're out. And he's like, Dave, get off the pitch. He goes, no, this is what you pay me to do. We're stopping the session now. We're working to strict protocols. Right, lads, get in. And he'd overrule Clive. But that is what you needed around that coaching structure, and that's what they did, is that they made it so ahead of its time for that World Cup that you had full faith in it.
I always laughed that, again, with the Clive thing, I always found Clive very grown up, that if you're working hard, you can have a couple of beers. But he'd be very serious in saying to some players, some of the younger players, is, I don't mind you having a few drinks, but if you ever turn up late for one of my sessions, you'll never play for England again. If you turn up to one of my sessions and you're that worse for wear that you basically destroy it, you'll never play for England again in that aspect. I think Clive did say something along the lines of once where I got sort of brought into it. So don't get caught drinking with someone that you shouldn't be drinking with in that aspect as well. So Clive around me was always very grown up. It's like, have a couple of beers, it's fine. I always used to laugh Micah back me up that for some reason he used to give me the responsibility of signing off our midweek restaurant and bar tab, because I was the most experienced, I was the eldest. And he said, look, no, Jason, you make sure everyone's okay. And of course, we've been training Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday and all double sessions, sometimes 3 sessions. Come Wednesday night was our meal as a team. And literally Dave Redding would say, you can eat whatever you like, because we've been eating everything in those days, Mike, wasn't it? It was chicken with tomato sauce over it, and then it'd be something else with tomato sauce over it. And it was so boring. And we'd go to this Italian in Virginia Waters, 10. It was called 10 restaurant, 10. And we'd go in there, and it'd literally all be out there. And this guy he'd have pizzas, he'll have garlic bread with cheese and this and the other. You sit down, and you'd have the forwards at one end, backs at the other end, and the forwards would be eating 3 lots of starters before they even got to their main meals and stuff like that. And you're having a couple of beers and stuff like that. Or people weren't drinking because they was going to jump in the car and go home that night, because you had the option that you could stay at the hotel and then travel the next day and stuff like that. And my job at the end of the night was to sign the bill. So I'd go up to the owner and say, that's it, we're done. Can I sign the bill now like this? And he'd go, yes, Mr. Leonard, yes, Mr. Leonard. So all the guys would be sitting there, and they'd see this guy come across, and he'd come across with 1 bottle of his best red wine and a bottle of his best white wine. I go, there, that's for you, Mr. Leonard. I go, oh, yeah, thank you very much. I signed the bill and walk out, obviously putting that on Clive's bill, something like that. I reckon for about 7 years, I used to get a Christmas card off of him just because of that. The amount of money we spent in that restaurant.
Well, when we turned up, he was driving a Nissan Micra. When we left, he was driving a Ferrari. So you wonder why they are in financial ruin. This guy at number 10, he's back in Italy with his own chateau or somewhere, or whatever the Italian equivalent is. Yeah, it was ridiculous how much food he is. Dorian West just sat in the corner
No wonder Clive's budget to run that team was 10 million quid a year. Only a grand of it went on high performance by the sound of it. It's a really interesting question. I've never actually asked this, certainly for Tins. I don't think of any of the O3 crew, but if you look at the relationship between players and coaches, I mean, actually, incidentally, off the back of Jack Charlton sadly passing away the other day, the outpouring of affection from the players that he coached was astonishing. And you look at, I suppose, the class of '92 and the mentoring that the Sir Alex Ferguson, the role that he played in their lives. Your team, and famously, I think I'm right in saying that when extra time came in '03, Martin Johnson said to Clive, "It's all right, we've got it," at the interchange, and just said, "We'll take it from here." And Clive left you to it. What is your relationship like with Clive now? How do you perceive the role that he played in the success that you had?
I think originally, once the post 2003 World Cup, and there was a lot of accolades being thrown around, I think players most probably thought that Clive was getting far too many, and Martin Johnson should have most probably got a few more in that aspect. But Jono wasn't bothered about it, so if Jono's not bothered about it, I wasn't bothered about it. I suppose to a certain degree, there's that old the coaching or manager side of it. Managers get too much praise when they win, and obviously they get all the blame when they lose in that aspect. So 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. No, I always got on all right with Clive. Clive was always a bit twitchy with me because I always used to. I knew I was doing it, but I didn't do it originally for it. So we'd have these meeting rooms where there'd be a horseshoe of desks as such, and Clive and his coaching team would be there with the presentation behind them, and this horseshoe of tables, and I'd always sit the closest to him. And he'd always say to me quite a lot, "Can you not go and bloody sit over there?" or something like that. I'd be, "No, I'm sitting here." And then he'd do his presentation, and I'd have great fun. And he'd say something, because Clive had some great ideas, but Clive also had a load of ideas that you just think, "No, not in a million years, we're not doing that." And I always used to judge by his reaction, where I'd sit there just going, "Oh my fucking Lord, just fuck." So, and then all of a sudden, Clive would change mid-presentation and do it differently. And then I'd be sitting there, yeah, that's more like it. Yeah, I can see that like that. So I used to quite enjoy just having a wind-up with him. But he, as I said to me, I quite enjoyed him. I think he got a lot of grief around there from players thinking it should have gone somewhere else. I was always getting asked at the time, take Clive out of it, do you think the England team would have won without Clive? And you go, you can never ask that. You can never really answer that question properly. But I know for a fact, what Clive did and what he gave us and how he changed, not just overnight in that period as in 2003, it was since the game turned pro, because we all just take it for granted that, everyone travels business class there. We didn't travel business class. We travelled to Australia and New Zealand in economy. Clive changed that. We used to always share rooms in single beds. I'm that wide. If I roll over in a single bed, I fall out of a single bed. It's ridiculous. But Clive made sure that the players had their own rooms, and they had big double beds or big beds for the tall guys and all this. At the diet, again, sometimes when you go on tour, you might get a dodgy bit of food or something like that, and you blame the chef. Well, I got a dodgy bit of food. So he brought in our own chef. So I think Clive, people tend to forget that about Clive, that if it wasn't for Clive, we wouldn't have had the great opportunity in 2003.
There's a great story about Jason when the nutrition came in, and when Ros Kadir came in with Adam Carey, it completely revolutionised what Clive did was he took professional sport to elite professional sport. At that time at your clubs, it was professional, but it wasn't an elite level where it is now, or where it was in 2003 in terms of where Clive took it to. So these are the things that he really sort of shaped. And he brought in this Adam Carey and Ros Kadir, and we had to fill out everything that for a week, we basically had to take this form away, fill it in, everything that you ate, everything that you drank, alcohol, cigarettes, whatever. You had to sort of list it all down.
You had to weigh it as well. You had to weigh it as well.
Weigh the
individually.
Foods, so you could say, so they knew exactly the weight of what your meals were. And obviously, I'm not going to speak out of turn. Most of us lied. None of us weighed the food. We just basically guessed what it was. But then she came back in and she was like, a couple of the big questions are around alcohol consumption. You all seem to be and obviously we've all lied about our alcohol consumption. And she says, basically, there's one of us, I'm just going to pick one out, and it's an example of Jason Leonard. Jason. Who's Jason? And Jason put his hand up and goes, 40 units of alcohol over a week is a lot. And Jason just went, no, sorry, Ros, that's on a Saturday. And she's just gone, what? And he's like, no, that's just on the Saturday. Did you want the whole week? And basically, she's just like, but that was the beauty of it. She's like, okay, this is going to be a bit trickier than what I thought it was going to be.
So we were talking about referees earlier, and the great Derek Bevan and Steve Stuart Dickinson, excuse me. Andre Watson, discuss, Chase. Your finest hour.
Personally, I never had a problem with Andre. Andre is a very, how can you say, as a referee, he's a yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full, sir. You can't remonstrate with him at all. It's you just bite your lip, and even if he's made the biggest mistake, as referees do, same as players, right in front of you, you just got to bite your lip and go, good call, sir. Good call, something like that, because he's one of these guys that you're never going to win in that aspect. And he's never going to change his mind. He's actually, even trying to, is going to make him even less so. And we had a couple of games with him, and we didn't have a great record with Andre Watson, actually. We lost quite a few games with Andre, but they were always close games and this. And again, personnel, I mean, you got someone like Martin Johnson towering over you, glaring, that sometimes doesn't help. And we tried to change that a couple of times and get Dulce to speak to a referee because he's more quieter and stuff like that. Lowell just talks at anybody all the time, so you're trying to get Lowell out of the situation as well. And I suppose with me, especially regarding 2003, it was what the referee said prior to the game. The referee said to us as a front row, the England front row, in the changing rooms, look, guys, I welcome the scrummage. And we said, look, we know we've got a superior scrum, but we're mindful of the fact it's a World Cup final. Are you going to allow us to actually scrum against Australia? Because they're weaker than us. And he said, guys, I'm South African. I love the scrummage. Scrummage away until your heart's content. Which was fine for the first 20 or 30 minutes. That actually was the case. And penalties were coming our way. I think once the game turned in the second half, you started listening to the language the referee's saying over the ref mics. And you could just see he's slowly turning. He's turning the other way a little tiny bit. A lot of the players were having digs at him as well because of frustration and being a little bit catty in that aspect. And it just got to the point where I think at one point, about 60, 65 minutes in the game, he basically pulled both lots of front rows over and said, look, guys, there is millions of people around the world and there's 80,000 people in this stadium. They've come here to watch a game of rugby. They haven't come here to watch a scrum. So come on, right. And that got my alarm bells going. So I was trying to get a message upstairs to Clive. And again, trying to talk to, because the two guys were having a great game. Trevor Woodman and Phil Vickery were having a great game against their opposite numbers, but they just wasn't listening to the referees. And so I said to Clive, get me on. I think Clive must have thought, Jace just wants another crafty cap in his World Cup final and this and the other. And I'm like, oh, get me on. If you've not been listening to the referee, get me on. We're starting to lose the referee here. And it sort of got longer and longer. And then literally they equalised. They got their penalty from a scrum, funny enough, in the end of normal time. And basically Clive said, right, that's it, you're on. And I sort of said some choice words to him along the lines of, that's about time, something like that. And I just went on and I spoke to Jono with the players, with the forwards, and just said, look, guys, we're not actually going to push against Australia. And you can see Jono looking at me. Is it like, really? Like, really? I'm going, mate, I'm playing against a guy called Matt Dunning. I'm not particularly that worried about it. It will be fine. But we won't push on their ball and we won't push on our ball. And Jono and the players went, right, okay, Jace, if that's what you're saying. So I went up to the referee, Andre Watson, and I said, excuse me, sir. And he spins around and he's like, oh, look, Jason. I said, look, sir, I'm on the pitch now. So I just want to assure you that I've had a word with our players and the scrum's going to be fine. You'll get no more penalties out of us whatsoever. I said, you know me as a prop. I'll go forwards, I'll go backwards. I won't go up and I won't go down. I won't wheel. So you'll get no penalties out of me. And he actually thanked me for it. He actually said, "Oh, thank you, Jason," like that. And I was thinking, but that's really the most civil conversation an Englishman had with him for the last half an hour, to be quite honest, because most of our players wanted to kill him in that aspect. And that's what he was. And then after, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 scrums, sort of run past him, mindful of the fact, because again, Andre's one of these guys you couldn't really touch as a referee because he would do it. What are you doing? Sort of thing like that. So I sort of put my hand behind his back without touching him, going, "Excuse me, sir, is everything all right with the scrums?" And he went, "Jason, they're absolutely fine. Thank you very much." And that was it. That's basically all it was in that aspect.
Which is a brilliant story. And it sums you up in so many ways. Where did you watch the drop goal from? Were you head up in the grass, or were you ready to take it on if Johnny had shipped it? Where were you?
I was trying to sit on Matt Dunning, to be quite honest. I was actually trying to sit on Matt Dunning's head in that aspect. Right. He was one of these ones. It's just funny, as in a very weird way, that drop goal routine, we'd practiced nearly every other training session for 2 years. I mean, the bit with Dulce making the break, we didn't practice because everything else was as we practiced time and time again at training sessions, just to go through it. And again, I think that most probably that seed was sown from sort of Yanni De Beer in 99 in that aspect, to win a game, drop goal, keep the scoreboard ticking over. And that was our sort of, we know what to do here. And we had enough nous to do it. But Dulce made the break, and then again, to recover from that, get Dulce off the floor so he could pass to Johnny. And again, I always laugh, Johnny hit a great drop goal, but Johnny had missed a few that night. So you was sitting, literally, as I said, I'm trying to sit on Matt Dunning so he can't get in the defensive line. And you just heard this lever on lever. And it was like a golf shot. That you just heard that perfect sound. You didn't even need to look at it, really. You just knew where it was going over.
Where's the medal, Nad? Is it in a sock drawer? Is it in a museum? Is it in Barking Rugby? Where is it?
No, it was in the house for a while, until I come home one night when my 2 boys were very young, and being quite boisterous kids as well, I sort of walked in the house and can't hear anything. I was like, that's a bit strange. So I'm sort of looking in rooms and all this, couldn't find anyone. So all of a sudden I could hear a bit of whispering going in on the sort of under the stairs sort of toilet. And so what's going in there? And I sort of opened the door, and I found one of my boys with my medal over the toilet, going like 1, 2, 3, and the other one with his hand on the toilet on the handle. And I sort of, for a few years, I tucked it away, and I put it away somewhere and stuff like that, and didn't get it out. And I thought, this is ridiculous. So a good few years ago, I got it out, and just so kids can see it, and sometimes you go away and stuff like that, and it's quite nice. You get some of the kids' mates come round, and yeah, there you go, hold it and stuff like that. So it's one of these. I don't think it's doing anyone any benefits in at the bottom of a sock drawer in that aspect. So no. So you try and show it. I don't walk around with it in that aspect. But I've heard Tins has done that in Bath. Walked around it with his in Bath. You recognise me? Do you recognise me? Where's yours?
Mine spent the first 2 years in my local bar, just hung behind the bar.
Oh, really?
And then the bar shut, so I had to take it down, and now it just hangs at the little bar that we've got at home. It's sort of hidden behind 2 world and European gold, Olympic silver medal, world team gold, world European team gold, silver. So it's drowned really behind the accolades of my wife.
I'm surprised
I do like to pull up my Parker Pen winning medal every now and again, though, just to try and send it back at her, but it doesn't really work.
You're both legends to have one. That is for sure. Jace, I want to finish just by almost getting back to the beginning. You were telling the story about how much you learnt from the great Gary Pearce, and I want to know almost the greatest memento that you have from the game, and I want it to be about bathtubs.
So it's a bit of a long story. It's got to be, it's the mid-90s, the West Stand had just been knocked down, and they're about to start rebuilding the West Stand at Twickenham. And I knew off a couple of guys in the building teams and the maintenance teams that all the stuff from the old changing rooms had been stashed away in a couple of containers. So I went in one day with my van. I just spoke to a load of the guys on the gate and just said, "Oh, I've got Jason Leonard and this and that." Oh, a couple of Irish guys there recognised me. I said, "Love, I've come in to collect my bath." And they're looking at each other. I said, "I've been given one of the baths because obviously the Twickenham don't need it anymore." And for people that don't know, in the changing rooms, they've got these fantastic cast iron baths that must be at least 6'6" long. It's got to be at least 3 foot and a bit deep. And I said, I've come to collect one. And they went, "Oh, we know exactly where they are, Mr. Leonard. Not a problem. Park your van up over there." I went, "Great, lovely." So it's taken all of these 8 sort of navvies to pick up this bath and then start putting it in my van. And I'm at the front of the van and I'm signing stuff from, "Oh, something, a message for your son." "Yeah, not a problem." "There you go." "Yeah, well, something for the wife." Or, "Yeah, great, lovely," and all this. And all of a sudden, as I turn around and the bath is nearly in my van, all of a sudden these Irish sort of builders were dragging it back out again. And I was going, "What's going on there?" And I walked around the back of the van and I walked straight into then the longest serving professional at the RFU, ex-player, called Don Rutherford. And he was the director of rugby there, and he was all power. He was God, basically, in those days. And I'm like, oh my God, my heart's just sunk, dropped. And he's looking at me, and in those days, that would normally be an instant, right, that's it, you're out of the team and all this. And I think because of the audacity of it, he basically just looked at me and went, "Jace, it was well worth a try." And then he just went walking off. And then would you believe it after that? So when they not downsized the changing rooms, but they stopped using all the baths, because they used to use the baths in my last couple of years more for the ice baths, and the same with tins and things like that. But now they've brought in a couple of machines now that does that same process. So they didn't really need the baths. So after my 2015 stint as president, I got presented with a bath from the England change room. So I've got my own bath. I still haven't got it yet. It's actually still in Twickenham. Because if I do get the bath, I've got to reinforce the floor to put it, because it weighs 100 weight. It weighs a ton. So it's one of those. So I didn't get my original bath, but I've got one now.
I absolutely love England's greatest, longest serving player pinching a bath and then being awarded it for services to the game. There can be no greater accolade than being given a bathtub. It's the kind of thing that probably comes with a high diving board. They're so big. You can fill it with ice and a couple of bottles of bubbly.
I think there's still 2. They still have 2 in there, don't they?
Yeah, I think they do.
I don't know whether they're the originals. I think they're just. I don't think they might be copies, but they were great. There was no hot and cold when we were first started. It was just to chill the beers, I think, when we first started.
Definitely.
Jace, you're an icon, and with such good reason. Will you do our quick quiz just before we go? Sure. So we've borrowed this from the French TV show We On The Culture, and we're calling it Shoot From The Lip. We've been asking for other people to title it, and apparently someone's called it Marla's Ticklers. I'm not sure we're going to settle on that, but we'll keep them coming. Jace, if we could actually just call it Leonard's 10 in this sort of an honorary corner. Quick fire, here we go. What's your favourite word?
Mate. Mate would be my favourite word. Hello, mate.
That's a very good selection. Your least favourite word?
Training.
Greatest moment in the game?
Not training.
Worst moment in the game?
Training.
Favourite swear word?
Training.
Fucking training.
What sound or noise do you love?
Champagne cork popping.
Good. Sound or noise you hate?
Anything negative.
What profession, other than your own, or your many, would you love to have attempted?
Lord Mayor of London. Come on, Jace. We all tried to push you down that route.
Prime Minister. I tell you what, you'll get a couple of votes on this show.
Never going to happen. Never going to happen. What would I like to be? I'll tell you what, an astronaut. An astronaut.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a good one. If you could do a road trip with 3 players from your career, who'd be in the car? In fact, because you are the fun bus, you can have more if you'd like.
This starts an argument every single time I do this. Years ago, I wrote a very Cheap and Cheerful book that I left out Mick Skinner, and Mick Skinner didn't talk to me for about 2 years because I didn't put him in my dream drinking team. And he said, why the hell did you put Rory Underwood in there? And he goes, you could have at least put me in. I went, mate, he doesn't drink, so he's designated driver. That's the reason why Rory's in the team. And yeah, and I've got to say, Skins didn't see the funny side of it at all. So everybody, I'll have it again, and that's what I used to love. I'd always try and get my opposite
There's two definitely
number.
in there, isn't there? Guska and Lola in there for sure.
For sure.
Who else goes to your yearly lunch?
Yeah, but again, then they're all going to fall out. They're all going to fall out. I can say the one guy that would beat all the lot of us, he's sadly no longer with us, was a big second row called Norman Hadley. Storming Norm.
Canadian.
Now, he was an absolute legend. He would be the first go-to.
Oh, Jace, that's brilliant. Didn't he clean up the tube as well one time?
Yeah, he threw out a couple of yobs that was smoking after one of the fires at the station. And someone on the tube asked these two guys, can you please stub out your cigarette, put out your cigarettes? I mean, people have lost their lives and stuff like that, and they were very rude to an old lady. And I mean, he picked them up and threw them off the tube. I don't even think their feet hit the floor; they just hit the wall and then hit the floor. I mean, he's 6'9". He's got to be at least 22 stone. He was a monster of a guy, an absolute monster of a guy, but a lovely rugby guy.
Final question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Go back down and do it again.
And you wouldn't do it any differently?
No, I wouldn't change one thing. I think in the modern day, you'd have to. But again, when you're talking to kids and you're talking to parents, and so again, you've got to have that fun. You've got to have that element of fun, and it's got to be jovial. And boys and girls will get to an age in any sport. I'm saying this with rugby, obviously, but in any sport, when they realise they have possibly a modicum of talent, and they've got to decide, do they want to go on? And if they want to go on and do bigger and better things, there's a lot of sacrifice that goes along that journey. Or actually, don't go any further like that and just stay at their local little club and play with their mates in the same team, and you go out every Saturday or every Sunday and there's nothing wrong with that as well. Because if that's what you want to do, then that's great. You're still playing this great game. If you want to become an international, again, that's great. Different journey. That's great as well. But if you don't want to do that and you just want to turn up at your local rugby club every Saturday or Sunday afternoon or whatever it would be, just play with your mates. That's fantastic as well.
You preach some very wise words, particularly for a front row forward, but you've always bucked the trend in that regard. Tins, final word to you. It's been an absolute pleasure to have the great man on, someone you idolise as a player and now consider a friend. Yeah,
I mean, look, he's played a huge role in my life and my career, and most of the best things that have, most of the best and worst things that have come out of it have had influences from Jace. No, I say worse. That's not really the case, but. I just, what he is as a bloke, he is a proper rugby man. And anyone out there, even if you're aspiring to be the highest pro that you can be, just look at Jason Leonard, what he is as a bloke. And if you can maintain that, you'll go far. You'll go far, my son.
Jace, I don't know how much creosoting you do, but we'd love to send you a T-shirt to wear on your Saturday chores. Would you like good, bad, or rugby?
I think it's got to be bad, isn't it?
Oh.
It's got to be bad.
I think it probably does, yeah. I think it probably does. We'll have one of those packaged up and sent over to you. Genuinely, it's been an absolute pleasure. It really has. I talk about story time with Uncle Jace. You are one of England's greatest players, and you're certainly their finest ambassador. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Look after yourself.
Pleasure, guys. Absolutely loved every second of it.
Thanks to Jace. Thanks to Tins. Don't forget Hask's Q&A, ladies and gents, on Friday. Do get involved in that if you'd like. Questions in the Facebook group, Good Bad Rugby. You'll be able to see the results across social as well. The great guests just keep rolling in. We've got a lot to get through in the next 3 weeks. We've got 2 New Zealanders and a Scot, 269 international caps between them, and a World Cup winner to boot as well. Make sure you don't miss it. Jace, you're a ledge. Thank you so much again. Look after yourself. Tins, be seeing you soon. From all of us, bye for now.